I think we should tax the rich people like you.
And you?
Okay. Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon. Welcome to ZAID Ibrahim Podcast. If you like it, you can subscribe and then help us in the algorithm. Today, I have another special guest, Dr Jayakumar from PSM, President of the Socialist Party Malaysia. Welcome, Doc.
Thank you, Datuk.
Yeah. You see, last 2 weeks, through this podcast, we have got guests proposing some changes to our economic policy. Some spoke about the failure of the Malay Agenda and the lack of, or rather, they would like to see things better in that regard. Some say that's very divisive, it does not optimize the potential of the country. There are others who are promoting what I found quite attractive, which is the idea of a national Malaysian agenda. These proponents of this idea do not want us to be too fixated with ethnic groups, with Bumi Putra, non-Bumi Putra. They see this as it's almost like a class issue as well. So they wanted a more national agenda, very futuristic. Now, all these ideas are not easy to sell. It takes time. Even accepting a departure from new economic policy is very daunting, especially from the more nationalistic groups, I would call them. But today you are here because I want to see your views. You're a seasoned politician. You have gone through. You have seen the country's performance over the years. Can you give me some idea of what you would like to see, the changes in our national economic policies?
Sure. Thanks, Dato'. I think it would be wrong to say that the Malay agenda has failed. Because if you look at the affirmative policies, it has created a significant Malay middle class. Nurses, doctors, engineers, so many professionals who have come up because of the policy. So the policy, I wouldn't say you can say it's partially succeeded. So yeah, I don't think it's failed. And but I think you got to see that certain aspects, the Malay society is still behind economically. Because recently, I think last year, when the government came up with the median savings in the EPF, comparing by ethnic groups, the Malays were much lower than the Indians and the Chinese. And if you look at
why is that?
I think they generally earn less. Generally, even the formal sector,
they earn less.
They earn less. The jobs they have.
Or is it because they don't want to save?
No, I don't think so. EPF is a percentage of your savings, so it's EPF savings. And if you look at now, Grab drivers, guys on motorbikes and all that, far more Malays than any other race, which means a lot of young Malays who can't get any other better job. So I think these are some of the things that we need to look into. I mean, the racial imbalance has improved, but not completely so. At the same time, you also got to bear in mind that a lot of the Indians especially, and also Chinese, the poor, the B40, feel very aggrieved by the NEP because they feel they've been left out of jobs, of scholarships, of places in the public universities. So they feel, unhappy about it. So you got to consider both. I think both feelings are justified. I think the Malay community feels anxious that they may get left behind without affirmative policies. That is a fair concern. There's a fair, thing that we got to fair anxiety. It's not something out of the air. Look at the society itself. Malays are still backwards in the SME sector, for example. we look at ownership of factories, of business premises, I think Malays are very far behind, and the Sabah Sarawak natives are even further behind. So these realities are still there. The society hasn't become even yet. Even ethnically, there are imbalances. So we need to look into that. At the same time, the fact that the B40 in the non-Malays feel that they've been very unfairly treated.
Is that a large component?
I think it's a large component, That's why this issue is very, very emotive. And because of the politicking taking place around it, it becomes a me against them, us against them kind of a thing. Where what you said earlier of having a Malaysian agenda, I think that's where I think we all got to think in that way. I am an Indian, but I should be also concerned about the issue of the Malay poor. And Malay politicians should be concerned about the issue of the non-Malay poor, of the Indian poor, of the Orang Asli poor. So I think we got to start thinking as a nation and thinking that, okay, now we're about 65 years into independence. Where do you want to be at 100 years?
Yeah.
Malaysia 100, around 2057. Where do you want to be? So I think you got to think collectively, and you got to convince both the Malays and the non-Malays that we don't bear ill will towards anyone. We want to have a harmonious society. We want to share the wealth of this country. You got to buy their trust. Right now, because of the politicking taking place, you make any comment on this issue, there are people waiting to snipe on you, partly because they want to use this to enhance their political standing in their own party and with their own community.
Yes. Okay, I understand that. But I just want to clarify to the audience, with the benefit of the listeners. I don't think there's anybody here who is asking to remove affirmative action. I don't think so. I think that is not the issue. The problem with the new economic policy, I think, with all its success, has also enabled selective patronage being given to certain people, certain groups, which actually is detrimental to those who deserve help, because there's only a limited supply of whatever project, money, So I think they agree that affirmative support should be given to the Bumiputras, but I think as well as to the poor Indians and Chinese. So, and this is where but at the same time, we have this fear that we talk about this, we are going to be subject to some investigation, hasutan, sedition. How are we going to come out with the Malaysian agenda and be somewhat critical of the Malay agenda without running foul of these things?
We can give some useful suggestions. I mean, if let's say you're going to have the ethnic quotas, let's say for admissions.
Ethnic quota, okay.
Okay, for admissions. Instead of saying do away that completely, we can say if you're going to have ethnic quotas, there also must be some ethnic quotas for the non-Malays, reasonable ethnic quotas for non-Malays, whether it reflects their population ratio or what. That's one. Secondly, within the ethnic quotas, say for Malays, for example, we must make sure that at least maybe 40% of the places must go to the Malay B40. We can't have the Malay T20 and M40 taking all the quotas that are. So I think that is something very important. In all the educational institutions, the Mara colleges, see, Dato', your children and my children will do better in school because they have the facilities. We speak to them in English. We have tuition for them. They'll do better. So, there can be a very bright Malay kid or an Indian kid in the estate, and they can't make it not because they don't have the capacity, but because of the conditions. So I think the quotas, even if you keep some ethnic quotas for the time being, you must make sure the quotas go, that at least 40%, maybe even 50% should go to the B40, 40% to the M40, and the T20 only get 10% of the quota because they can go to the private institutions. Their families can afford it. So we should sell that for all races. So even
okay, good idea. But invariably, the people who decide all these things are the politicians from the ruling party.
We also politicians, right?
No, I'm I'm a political commentator.
Okay, all right.
That is the problem, in the sense that they will want to give more quotas or more places or more to their voters in that group, surely. So, how do you then? I mean, I have a suggestion that maybe we should have what we call a consultative council, made up of some, well-known, credible Malaysian leaders or former leaders, to carve out, like you said, quota for universities should be like this, should be structured like this, and then the B40 should be more. In fact, I think the B40 is getting bigger. So yes, some impartial body mandated by by the highest authority, because as you know 153 is mandated to the Agong. So perhaps a royal consultative council be formed to include people of this description, to then carve out the formula, a transparent, verifiable formula, how we give this benefit in these quotas. What do you think?
That's, I think, a good idea worth exploring. It's
But
a good
will
idea.
they do it? Will the
No, I think it depends on how many Malaysians understand this and support it. If it becomes something that Malaysians insist on, talk about, then I think it's possible. And I think it should go more than just university admissions. I think the government does give a lot of grants and loans and even business opportunities to Malay businessmen, to develop their capacity. But it's my perception that a large number of them just Alibaba it. They use it to collect rent from their Chinese partners, and in that process they don't actually gain their own capacity. So that too has got to be looked into. I mean, the government has got some policies that all the GLCs must give so many of their contracts for acquiring various inputs must go to Malay companies. Similarly ministries as well. But that, I think, again, it's not going to the.
Yeah, but how do you overcome it?
I think you need to have a council that looks at it and make sure that the quotas given, the business given, because often, let's say, for example, you want to buy medicines in a hospital. You don't buy directly, you buy through a particular company, and that company must be registered with the Ministry of Finance. That company must have a Malay ownership. But if that company doesn't actually do the work, but then subcontracts it to someone else, then the whole purpose of building the capacity is gone. So I think you must look into those things. And so, because there is a social cost. Because when you don't buy directly, the hospital itself, the Ministry of Health, buys all the medicines directly without going through these kind of things, they can get the medicines cheaper. So you're paying 10%, maybe 15% more of public finances. But if that actually, at the end of it, develops the capacity among Bumiputra businessmen, it's worth it. But if it's not, it's just being sold off as some rent gathering, then it's a waste.
But this may be an extreme view, no? But we have tried all this before. That is why I'm inclined to think that the government should stop pandering to this sort of culture. I mean, people will get angry with you. But if you want to give this medicine to get at the best cost price, you have to give to whoever, government or whatever, that gets the best cost price. And the distribution of that medicine has to be decided by government, regardless of race, to carry it through. Otherwise, every time we want to do something so-called to empower the Malays, to give them opportunities to develop, but it didn't work out. We have tried for 50 years. So how do you change behavior? How do you change attitude? I think you have to also recognize, although people may not like it, or it sounds very harsh, but you cannot develop the culture of the people by continuing with the same kind of thing. If I can get easy money, why would I want to do work? If I can get from you, let's say you are the Minister of Health or Finance, and I say, Doc, give me this license or give me this supply of medicine, And you want me to empower and to create a business community when I can make money without doing it. Why would I do that?
Well, maybe you need to have a council there with people like the MTEM, the Majlis Tindak Ekonomi Melayu, people like that sitting there and saying that there is opportunity cost, because what the government gives in this way and pays more for it, that money could be used for the Malay poor, So you have a trade-off, because the government does have, budgetary constraints. So what the government pays more in terms of these kind of contracts actually is less money for building the social sector.
Yeah, they know that.
So I think this is something that maybe within the Malay community, with the MTEM and groups like that, should be empowered to sit in a committee and review. And if, let's say, you have taken this and just, used it to collect rent, the next time we won't give you, So there can be something in the agreement, But I think there is a need to equalize. You see, Dato', we need to carry the people with us. If you take a particular suggestion, which the Malay majority don't accept, then they'll say, and people will say, oh, he's in the pay of the DAP or something like that. So it's no point having a position that, you can't win the people over to you. So you got to maybe go by phases. But I think there's a need to look into this. There is a lot of wastage. It has been looked into.
There's a lot of self-interest. There's a lot of wastage. There's a lot of greed. There's a lot of, whatever you call it, that people want to find the easy way to make money. And I think that behavioral change can only happen with a slightly more vigorous, strong policy. Not popular, but very strong implementation of that policy. Otherwise, we're back to another 50 years. We'll be saying the same thing. Oh, we have to give them a chance. We have to give them a ability to empower themselves. We have to give them... But at the end of the day, the country is going down because we're going to pay more. We're going to pay 140 billion for the civil servant salary and pension, and then 150 billion, 170 billion, and then there's no money because there are so many leakages. So, I want to ask you this: what is the non-Malays' expectation? To be honest with you, never mind what the Malays feel. Okay, when you talk about sensitivity, it seems to be from the Malays, right? Okay, what about the non-Malays? What do they expect?
I think...
What would they expect if you ask them? They want a fair treatment, isn't it?
I think if you ask, like I work with Chinese farmers, right? In Perak, a lot of them are getting, displaced, evicted. They're just asking for fairness.
Yeah.
They want a chance to make a living. They want the land they've been tilling from their grandfather's time till now to be leased to them.
Yeah.
They just want fairness. They don't want any extra money or anything. No, just give me my land. Don't chase me away. So basic fairness. I think for the Indians in the B40, they would like some government help. What the Malay poor get in terms of scholarships.
But don't they get now through MIC? No,
they don't.
You sure?
Enough. They don't get enough.
My friends at MIC said they give a lot.
No, maybe, I don't know, but not enough.
Maybe it doesn't reach.
Yeah, it doesn't reach. And
doesn't trickle down.
I mean, the Indian underclass, the B20, the poorest are really in tough state, and they would need help, So they would like some of the help. The affirmative action goes for Malays. They like to get part of that. That's for the Malays. And of course, the Orang Asli, the land, the land is taken away.
Yeah.
So that's a big problem. Orang Asli, the people in Sabah, Sarawak, indigenous people, their land is being encroached on, because it's traditional land, they got no papers. So, development...
But this applies in Sarawak as well.
Sorry? Applies Sabah and Sarawak as well. Yeah.
Because they have a lot of this tanah.
Yeah,
Adat.
Tanah Adat. And it's not recognized in the law.
Yeah.
And they get... So I think different communities have different expectations, But I think this country is rich enough to do all these things,
Yeah,
This country is rich enough. Actually, I want to bring up another point, Issues of going to universities and colleges and getting degrees, all fine. Right now, we get about 200,000 graduates a year, with degrees and diplomas.
200,000.
200,000. And only about 50, 60,000 jobs every year
Available.
that are for graduate level.
Yeah.
The rest of them got to go and do Grab, or do other jobs. So that's a structural mismatch in our economy where too many of our jobs are low income jobs, you know. And the economy doesn't generate enough jobs. This is something. It's not that we do not need. We need more doctors. We need more nurses. We need more people to give care services. But the problem is, this is what the government has got to do, because these are not profitable.
Yes.
You know, things like rehabilitating our forests, management of waste, urban waste, and you know, all these things are not money making.
Responsibility lah.
But the government got no money lah. But the government had money, you could employ more people. So we got to think about that, you know, because just fighting for university places and getting people coming out is also a big frustration, because once you come out, only 1/3 of the people
can get jobs. And because there's so many unemployed graduates around, it's an employer's market. If I'm a boss, and I ask you to work overtime, and he talk back to me, I say, okay, never mind lah, you know, Zaid, you can go get someone else, right? Not, you know. So it's why I think someone recently said that the starting pay for graduates now is only 1/3 what it was 45 years ago when he started work. I think one of the Bank Malaysia, Bank Negara governor said it, you know, in real terms lah. So that is the problem that we are facing, that we have to look for all our communities. How can we generate more jobs so that people study and come out and they can use their skills in a useful way? So I think that's something we also got to think about. How do we do that? But you see, the number of students being pushed to do tertiary education, to go to universities, private and public, this was also actively pursued by government, because they want to get, they want to show that there are so many Malays doing this. I mean, that's how it started many years ago. We need more engineers, we need more doctors, which is justified. We need more this. But now, we are doing too much of that, don't you think?
No, I think we still
need that.
We need. I mean, if you look at our government hospitals, we are short of doctors still. I mean, doctors are working so hard, you know.
Yeah, but
look at our
the 200,000 are not doctors.
No. But I mean, to take hospitals, okay, you can also have other things like, you know, environmental green jobs, other caring jobs, you know, old people, visiting people at the home. So there are a lot of other jobs that need to be developed.
The curriculum, or we have to tailor-make the universities, the degrees, to suit the requirements of the community.
That's one thing. Yeah. But the other thing is, we need to think of how can we get more revenue into this government so they can have these kinds of programs. I mean, like now, our total revenue of government is only about 16% of GDP, you know, which is low. You know, it used to be about 28-30% about 50 years ago, you know, but now as a percentage of GDP, government revenue has come down.
So how do we increase revenue?
Oh, that's a big topic.
I think we should tax the rich people like you.
And you? Yes, I think we should. I mean, yeah, that needs to be done, you know, but there is a tendency, I mean, you do that too much. I mean, you could set up residence in Singapore and come.
But they do it anyway.
Yeah. So I mean, if you overdo that, the problem is sometimes rich people can go and domicile in Bangkok, spend just over 6 months away from the country. Then you can say, actually, I'm not domiciled here, you know. Only stay here 5 months. I stay 7 months there. And I pay tax there, you see. So, but maybe that one, what we have been saying in the PSM is maybe the whole of ASEAN have got to get together and talk about how can we get more tax from our rich in a way that doesn't allow them to go and stay somewhere else, you know. All go up together, you know. These are some of the things, some solutions have got to be done.
I have a solution, but I don't think you agree with me.
Oh, what's it?
Our tax collection on alcohol, entertainment and gaming runs into about $2 billion, I think.
Okay.
But that's you only give to one community, the Chinese. So you give the same facilities to Indians and Malays.
What's that? Oh, gaming?
Gaming. Sell liquor, entertainment. So by doing that, you will double the revenue for $1 billion.
This isn't a good idea to me.
Why?
I mean, alcohol has got health problems. It creates, family issues and all that.
Okay.
So does gambling, So I mean, I don't.
So if that is the issue, then we should ban all of this thing.
Ya, itu pun susah.
Because
itu pun susah.
Listen. You gave one community, so much money. They use that money to dominate the other communities. So you either level the playing field by banning them, or you give to others what you give to the Chinese community.
No, I don't think the Chinese community's capital and wealth comes mainly from gaming and selling
I'm giving you an example of the 2 billion that we earn, the revenue. It's from there.
Yeah.
So why should you enrich one community? If it is health, if it is moral, if it is religious, you ban them. Why should Genting produce $1 or $2 billion to one company? You should get to Jayakumar and company 1, 2, 3 billion casino. I mean, you may not want to do it, but my point is, you cannot give undue advantage to one community, and then you expect, we all share everything alike, we all go.
Tax them more. Have a special gaming tax. It's alcohol tax,
Anyway, Doc, thank you very much. I think that's a short discussion for this week.
Thank you.
Maybe next time you come down, we'll talk about other more important things.
Malaysia 2057.
Malaysia 2057. Agenda Baru.
Agenda Baru, and what we want to see in our country at that time. We won't be around that time, but
no, I won't be around. Both of us won't be around.
I don't think so. But what do we want to see? And how can we lay the seeds for that?
Yeah. Okay, Doc. Thank you very much.
Thank you.